Here. Karen Black.
Here.
Victoria Newport.
Here.
Rick Smith.
Here.
Howard Solomon.
Here.
All right, if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Lena, our high school senior here, is going to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next we have public participation and recognition. National Merit commended students. During the month of September, Bailey Fleming and Nina Greyball have been named commended students from the National Merit Scholarship Corporation, which conducts the program. This award was presented by Tamara Roper, the principal to these scholastically talented seniors. About 34,000 students throughout the nation are being recognized for this exceptional academic promise. Although they will not continue in the 2016 competition for National Merit Scholarship Awards, students placed among the top 5% of more than 1.5 million students who entered the 2016 competition by taking the 2014 preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship qualifying test. The young men and women have demonstrated outstanding potential academic success, commented a spokesperson for NMSC. These students represent a valuable national resource, recognizing their accomplishments, as well as the key role their school play in their academic development, is vital to the advancement of educational excellence in our nation. We hope that this recognition will help broaden their educational opportunities and encourage them as they continue their pursuit of academic success. So congratulations.
Can I just say about
Absolutely.
Bailey Fleming is not here. She's still on her way back from a swim meet. So I just want to say I'm extremely proud of these two young ladies. Lena and Bailey are both amazing. They're also the two female seniors who started the robotics. So have a very bright future. And top 5% out of over 1.5 million students is very impressive.
Yes, it is. Okay, next we have public comment. Members of the public who wish to speak to the board should complete a request card prior to the meeting. This section of the meeting will be reserved for comments from the public. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Criticism of individuals is not in order. All right. Okay. We have 4 cards tonight. We'll start with Mrs. Parker, the safety at DHS.
Good evening, school board, faculty, staff. My name is Carmela Parker. I have been in DeKalb, or DeKalb resident for the last 15 years. I would like to address a parental concern regarding student safety at DHS. Due to the climate of today's school system that is a result of the horrendous violent acts that have taken place in this country, it is imperative that District 428 put measures in place to first educate all students in their charge and second, ensure their safety. Beginning last school year, my daughter endured criminal behavior at DHS that consisted of stalking, repeated bullying, harassment, and progressed to physical assault. I took the proper precautions, contacting the building administration and the superintendent's office. The appropriate course of action were not followed. Failure to act in a timely manner further endangered my daughter's staff and the entire student body at DHS. The mere fact that a student is enrolled in the District 428 should ensure the right to pursue academic progress in a safe environment in which common decency prevails. I do not want any other student to suffer in that manner that my daughter has. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Tiffany Parker, new hires.
Good evening, board staff and participants and guests here this evening. I desire to address the board with concerns that I have over regarding the statistics. Thank you, first of all, for publicizing the statistics of our hires and just the financial statuses of our district, and just all that you do share with our community. We appreciate it. But I do have concern over in regards to the ratio of nationality and race with our hires. I'm noting that approximately 102 people have been hired in our district recently. Of course, that number is comprised of teachers, assistants, and other necessary positions. Yet 51 students were hired, 51, I'm sorry, teachers were hired, and only one of which was African American, and 3 were Hispanic or are Hispanic. I'm grateful for their hiring and them joining our community here in our district. Yet I'm concerned because that statistic directly impacts our children, as we are aware of the percentage of African American children we have in our community, Hispanic children in our community. I personally would like to see, I'm sure many families would agree, more of the children's kind of person and their nationality, their race, someone to relate to. I'd like to see them experience educated professionals of their own race and nationality to aspire to be. I ask you to consider my requests, my concerns, and take note of those in the future. It would be great to be pleased. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Joseph Mitchell, diversity and new hires.
Good evening. I would like to voice my concerns and questions that I voiced with the Multicultural Committee on Thursday. I'd like to voice them tonight with the school board. When will diversity among administrators and teachers in this district become a priority? The only way it permeates the entire district is if it's embraced and mandated from the top down. The demographic data for this district is alarming and disturbing. 51 new teachers hired, 1 African American, 1 Hispanic, in a district where those 2 demographical groups make up 40% of the students. Why isn't this a concern for administration and the school board? When will it become important for the teachers and administrators to be a direct reflection of the community and the students it serves? My oldest is in 7th grade at Clinton Rosette Middle School. Unless she takes Spanish, she will not engage with a teacher or administrator who looks like her. Why in 2015 am I fighting the same thing my father fought in 1986 when I was a student at Clinton Rosette? In a district with 40% African American and Latino students, why is it not mandatory for every school to have some level of educational engagement during Black History Month and National Hispanic Heritage Month? Both are integral parts of American history. I understand there will be a vote on policy upcoming tonight. There have been plenty of policy votes and changes since I've been a student in this district. Now is the time for action, not just on paper, but in the DNA fabric of this district. It's time for the leadership of this district to embrace and enforce diversity. If this district used the time, resources, and money it used to fire effective minority administrators, to hire effective minority administrators, the monologue that I'm having right now wouldn't be necessary. The perception of this district is it doesn't care. I myself am at about my limits of talking and meeting. If this district won't take action, there are plenty of people in this community who are willing and waiting to take action. The type of action that will draw more than local attention to this district's systemic problem. The city of DeKalb is in a competition for best community in America. One of the things that makes a community great is diversity and inclusion of all. I commend President Baker and NIU for its work on diversity and inclusion. I commend Chief Lowry and his visible efforts to make DeKalb Police Force a reflection of the community that it serves. Now it's time for District 428 to be intentional in its efforts to diversify this district. Changing policy is the first step to make real change, but the real change will come when District 428 recruits minority teachers and educators to this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Ann Almberg, Insurance.
Hi. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board, for letting me speak tonight. I speak as a taxpayer as well as a teacher in our district of 16 years. I'm here tonight to talk about the district's healthcare insurance program and to express my concern about the changes you might be considering making to that plan. Healthcare costs are on the rise as part of a national trend, so everyone is trying to figure out what can be done to turn this tide. One frequent solution is to cut the level of services within a plan, often by raising deductibles or co-pays in an effort to make the plan less expensive. This was done last year as the board voted to increase the emergency room co-pay without allowing the insurance committee to even discuss the idea before you took action. The result of this change was that the board saved approximately 0.1% on its premiums. It was also said that raising the copay would deter people from abusing or using the ER. This implication that was made was found out not to be true because at a recent insurance meeting, they were told that the ER usage remained flat, indicating that there was no abuse in the plan to begin with. My point is simply that tampering with the insurance program often doesn't produce the results one might expect. While shifting financial burden directly to the people who can afford it least. As healthcare costs rise, we all share in that burden. Everyone pays a percentage of their healthcare costs, feels the same percentage of increase. Employees of District 428 are willing to pay their increased share to ensure the insurance program is still viable and practical. I hope that the board is willing to do the same.
Thank you. Next, we have Vicki Alberto.
Yes. Sorry for the interruptions with my children. Last time I came up to speak to you, I was pregnant with my little one, so there's where he was. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm also here because of insurance. I'm here because you are scheduled to hear a presentation about the district's health insurance renewal for 2016, and I'm concerned about changes that the board might be tempted to make to the plan. We all understand how the board feels pressure to manage their expenses, and the unpredictable nature of healthcare costs makes it an easy target for cutting costs. But I urge you to look very carefully at the end result of any changes you may be considering, and not just at their impact to the bottom line. I'm concerned with some of the things I'm hearing that the board might be considering, such as doubling the calendar year deductible, doubling the emergency room copay, and quadrupling the yearly out-of-pocket maximum. Making all of these changes could have a devastating impact on your employees who are most in need of these essential services. I am definitely one of them. Since you have made changes to the plan last year and are considering doing even more this year, I am very worried about what the future will hold for our health insurance program. I'm worried that soon there will be nothing left to sell off in the plan, and we'll be left with something that is too expensive to be practically useful to our employees. As you try to balance your financial obligations, please take the time to think about your obligations to the people you employ and to carefully calculate and consider the end result of any changes you propose. I am also a taxpayer here in DeKalb. We have had to utilize the emergency room. My son has a genetic disorder that we found about last year. So those costs will be even double what they were before. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have board committee reports and correspondence. Howard?
The Multicultural Committee met on October 1st. The purpose of the meeting was to gather reports from the separate subcommittees. Different subcommittees did say what they had been doing over the previous 2 months since, or thereabouts, since the previous meeting. These included the Special Ed Subcommittee, which mentioned that there's going to be an audit in relation to special ed services. The disciplinary subcommittee had held several meetings. They addressed the articulation of courses across different levels and the fact that these are not yet in line with each other. That they addressed the idea that there is no student voice for discipline issues. Understand that there is something in the works for professional development of bus drivers. In general, we are using long out-of-school suspensions less often than in the past. We hope to avoid overreaction, like the case of the famous Texas clock that a student many brought into school, and because that student was Islamic, was rushed to the police department. We're trying to make sure that doesn't happen. There was a response that schools initiate attempts at parental involvement. While continuing to make safety. Schools initiate attempts at parental involvement as soon as an issue calls for a criminal investigation of any kind. And this raised a question about what level of discipline is being considered criminal. Schools do not seek to initiate involvement. The school resource or police involvement. School resource officers call homes first. We would rather implement in-school consequences than police consequences. An issue was raised that settling of issues between students could and sometimes is taken care of via parent-to-parent contact. Such contact is needed and ought to be encouraged, mostly because of late Friday events that will sometimes happen between students and may not come through the system until Monday, and the weekend is in between there as a time of imminent danger for some of the parties involved. An issue was raised about the cameras on the buses and the collected videos. It was explained that these cannot be seen by parents without violation of student privacy concerns. And Illinois Senate Bill 16 or 100 or something has passed, and will seek to limit punishment. 100 has passed and will seek to limit punishments of students to the minimum that can be effective. So we're looking at some big changes coming down the line. There was no report specifically from the recruitment subcommittee. The curriculum diversity subcommittee spoke to how Common Core addressed how meetings that address the Common Core and how it impacts diversity. A series of books at the DeKalb Public Library was recommended. There was a question about what happened to the Black History course that was developed but not implemented. And it appears that it has become a unit within United States history class, and that there also is a civil rights civics course. It was noted that there was probably somebody already on the faculty that would want to teach the Black History course if it was made available. The materials need depth in areas of interest. Professional development of teachers and district employees. There was a note that the cultural sensitivity enhances teacher ability to meet Common Core requirements, so we need to make sure that we provide items that lead to cultural sensitivity. Some comments from Joe Mitchell ended the meeting, and those related to our taking too long to get things done within that subcommittee, within those subcommittees, within the overall committee, and now again at this meeting. It's reflected once more. Thank you, Reverend Mitchell. End of report.
Okay. Anyone else? Just so everybody knows who the FFAC met September 23rd, and we have several new members. We added 2 realtors to the committee, and I think that will really help get our message out through the realtors to the community on what's going on in the district from the finance and facility side. The committee was also given a charge based on the board goals that we developed over the summer. And I'll read those really quick. What the charge was. It was present and recommend to the school board options and solutions for closing the budget deficit, 1% sales tax, whether they would support it, what the effort would be, and the timing on that. Review and recommend bond restructuring, and then projections and forecast, participate in reviewing and examining the assumptions for the financial project model, ongoing examination of student enrollment, building capacity, and educational programs. So that's the charge to the FFAC, and they will meet again on October 14th at 6:30 here in the boardroom. Anything else? All right. Next, we have the possible expulsion of student 100615. That the Board of Education approve the expulsion of student 100615 as identified in the student's file kept in the superintendent's office for the remainder of the 2015-2016 school year.
I'd like to make a motion to amend that recommendation.
Go ahead.
I'd like to recommend the expulsion for the remainder of the 2015-16 school year and alternative placement for the 2016-17 school year.
Do we have a second? Second. All right. Roll call, please.
Vicky Hernandez.
Yes.
Mary Hess.
Yes.
Karen Malak.
Yes.
Victoria Newport.
Yes.
Rick Smith.
Yes.
Howard Saltman.
Yes.
Next, we have the,
Wait, don't we have to vote on that twice? Once on the recommendation and once on the expulsion?
They've already amended.
Oh, okay. All right. Just wanna make sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
next we have the possible expulsion of student 100615A. That the Board of Education approve the expulsion of student number 100615A as identified in the student's file kept in the superintendent's office for the remainder of the 2015-2016 school year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mary Hess.
Yes.
Karen Malak.
Yes.
Victoria Newport.
Yes.
Rick Smith.
Yes.
Howard Saltman.
No.
Vicky Hernandez.
Yes.
Next, we have the possible expulsion of student number 100615B. That the Board of Education approve the expulsion of student number 100615B as identified in the student's file kept in the superintendent's office for the remainder of the 2015-2016 school year. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Rick Smith.
Yes.
Howard Saltman.
No.
Vicky Hernandez.
Yes.
Mary Hess.
Yes.
Karen Malak.
Yes.
Victoria Newport.
Abstain. Okay. Next we have presentations, DHS Marching Band Ireland trip. Steve Lundy.
Well, thank you, everybody.
This is informational.
Yes, for everybody who's not met me before, my name is Steve Lundin, the director of band at DeKalb High School. It's a pleasure to have this opportunity to tell you a little bit about what we have going on in the DHS band program. I saw in the board minutes that you guys all have the same information that I'm holding. There's some information about when this trip is planned, what exactly would be involved for the students, how we plan on raising money to do it, which is actually why we're here now. The trip we're talking about will be next spring, so we'll be marching in the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Dublin, Ireland for St. Patrick's Day in 2017, if approved. A little bit of history behind the band. In general, we try to provide really exceptional learning experiences that extend beyond the classroom. A connected cultural education is something that we believe very strongly in. In the past, we have generally, it happens about every 4 years, we try to provide one of these like life-changing positive experience for kids at least one time over the course of their time in the band. 4 years ago, we took the band to New Orleans. It was an incredible trip. 4 years prior to that, it was Atlanta. We've generally stayed here in the U.S. Actually, the idea for the Ireland trip came when we were in New Orleans. We were there with lots of other bands and frankly bands that I thought we were better than, for lack of a better term. And they had talked about these other places they had gone, and some of them had traveled internationally a number of times. I said, you know what, I think that this program is probably that step. We do a lot of things really well. We have the support from our community, and we have the fundraising apparatus. So here we are trying to take that next step for our students. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the material that was previously submitted. There's, I could walk you through the whole thing, but I don't think that really is in everybody's best interests. But I'm certainly happy to discuss it on any level you might like.
For the record, fundraising efforts are sufficient to be able to get the band to make this trip without any additional revenues and support from out of the existing budget.
Well,
Beyond
we have, in terms of district funds, you mean?
Yeah.
District funds have not been used for this type of student travel. Okay. That's been precedent in the past. We anticipate that would continue to be the case here.
Okay.
Has this kind of trip been done before internationally?
The school, so Robert might help me out a little bit. The school has sponsored international trips before, Spain, Costa Rica.
Yeah.
I believe back at the old high school there was a trip to France.
Germany.
Okay, so international travel is not uncommon. It's certainly been done before. This would be the first time that actually we did the choir did a performance tour in Canada maybe a dozen years ago. This would be the first time, to my knowledge, that the band has tried to do something of this scale. But certainly there are people in the district that we can rely on and speak to that has some history with it. So.
And this is 100 people or so.
That's the plan right now, yeah.
And is that also consistent with previous trips? Have there been 100 people, or has it been something under the 20 or 30 people? Anybody fill me in on this?
It has been under 100 in my experience.
Yeah, for international, this is probably the largest international trip we're talking about. The band generally travels with this size, unless it's, when the jazz ensemble went to New York, that was 20. But for the, a cappella last year, I think was about 25, if my memory serves right. So we've had smaller trips too, but the New Orleans trip was right around 100. Atlanta was actually the entire music department. That was close to 300. So we have done large scale trips before. That's not something we haven't had some issue with. And for what it's worth, the travel provider that we've selected to go with, their specialty is international travel with music performing groups. They work with a number of colleges, and I've talked to colleagues who have used them, and this is not something that we would try to do for our first time without getting some really excellent support around us.
Sounds like a great time.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I should probably
go, Steve.
I probably should have included. We did do a survey of our families. I put forth a couple different possible travel scenarios because a lot of families know, hey, 4 years is up. My student's supposed to get the opportunity. So we put out a questionnaire, and the overwhelming majority of people were really excited about this trip. This was the one that the students and the families gravitated to very quickly.
Sounds like
Yes.
Kids will have a great time.
I think it's a really cool idea, but I'm a little concerned, and I hope that should this come to pass, that whoever is in charge, the travel agency, whomever, that they'll check with the State Department, the CIA, and make sure that the area that you're going to at that point in time is considered to be safe. This is a large group. It's perhaps 3 or 4 times larger than any other international travel that's been done so far. And the world is in a great period of unrest right now. So really cool idea. And if it can be pulled off safely, I'd be all for it. But I also would recommend that, some months prior to the actual event, that we keep tabs on what's happening over there.
Yeah, that's certainly a concern that I appreciate. We do have options for travel insurance. If I would have to put in a couple phone calls, this is not something that I can answer right now on the spot. In terms of what if the State Department were to raise a threat level, for example, if our travel insurance would kick in and cover that. That's the kind of question that we can certainly ask. I think there's actually 2 levels of travel insurance. There's the group travel insurance, as in if the provider has to cancel it for whatever reason, probably more like what you're talking about. That clause would kick in. Students are also able to purchase individual travel insurance. This is more like if they get sick, and aren't able to go in the way that they're not out the money that they have spent and raised to do this.
Yeah, it is a substantial investment. I think a good investment, but it's a very substantial investment. And because of the uncertainty in world affairs, I think you have to be just so careful.
And To be very frank, typically this is the earliest I've ever brought one of these to the school board. And really, I was looking for some guidance, knowing that if there's going to be support, that we would have that before we go raise what might be $250,000. Not that we couldn't do that, some great things with the $250,000, but if we're telling students it's for one purpose and it turns out that the support wasn't there to do that, that's not really fair.
I think it's great that you're bringing this early on, because of the various factors involved in this. I was involved in a trip to Africa once, and our selected country was changed at the last minute because of political unrest.
Sure.
The trip still happened, and there were other issues. I won't go into it, but anytime these days when you're doing international travel, there's just so much you have to be concerned about. And if you are on top of it, if all the parties involved are on top of it, it can still happen. But I would say be careful with what you say to the students now. Don't let them get an idea of exactly what's going to happen, because it may well have to be modified.
And in all of the discussions we've had so far, the students have been told, prospective trip. I think we'll probably continue to use that term until we've collected all the money and cut the check, at which point it's not quite as prospective as it used to be.
Do we have a consensus that it's good for us?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have new hire demographics, Jim Borman, and this is also an informational item.
As called for in board policy, to present to you this information on an annual basis. And as already been pointed out here by a couple individuals, some concerns about the outcome of our new hires. There have been within this, though, certainly room for improvement. I think there are also some pockets that I think are worth mentioning, that we go to particularly in the area of Hispanic hiring, that our new teacher demographics are actually a little higher than our demographics were, our existing staff, which I'm glad that's headed the right way. In our African American, I could say the opposite is true. And so these are the demographics in charts, as well as the few different ways there for you to be able to see it in picture form. And certainly it's an area that we have room for improvement.
Any questions for Jim? Thank you.
I'm the next thing up too, so
Yep,
I'll
you
save
are.
myself bouncing up.
Insurance renewal report, Jim Borman.
The no, this is school.
Oh, I'm
calendar.
sorry, am I skipping? Okay.
Yeah, skip the page.
School calendar for the 2016-17 school year, Jim Borman.
What I presented for you here is the first report, the first page, which is the calendar with dates highlighted, colored. Those are areas, though that is the proposed calendar that comes out of the calendar committee. And I'm simply reporting it to you. You also find in the cover sheet to that a few recommendations that administration have to that calendar, such as being consistent with what day the collaboration day is on each of the times that it happens, to help facilitate planning in a little more easy fashion, and also point out to you a concern with the 1/2 student attendance day before each parent-teacher conference. The committee also did express some interest in interested in having the first and last day of the school year be shortened days to allow for collaboration or professional development. In their proposal, it also has that the teachers would work on Veterans Day. I still have to do research as to whether, I know student attendance, there has to be a waiver from the state. For teacher attendance, I don't know if that's a waiver is required. And also they discussed in the committee the possibility of reducing the number of parent-teacher conference day, parent-teacher conference opportunities to 1 a year instead of 2 a year. And I also then, this is just an informational item. I'm anxious to be able to hear from the board what their interests are as far as the things that we need to consider, whether the things like the Veterans Day proposal is okay with the board, whether or not there are other changes. We actually have quite late in the school year, the spring break being April 10 through 14 in that proposal. In leadership meeting today, I learned what the calendar is for map testing and park testing, which may conflict with this particular date. So we need to look at that more. So what I really need from the board is more feedback from y'all as far as what you would like us to consider to look at differently, and whether or not we would then bring to you a revised calendar proposal.
Jim, can you help me understand why you would go to one parent-teacher conference a year?
That was part of the discussion at the committee.
Can you help me understand the logic of that? Are parents not showing up, or?
Well, I think those who are expressing interest in that were more of the secondary than was the elementary. Elementary, depending on who you spoke to on the committee, there were a couple individuals who saw a lot of value to the spring, and it being early enough that they could challenge the parents and challenge the student to move forward at the end of the year.
What was the comment about Veterans Day again?
They are proposing that it actually comes with the 10th would be would be a half a student day with parent-teacher conferences, the balance of that day, and then the next day there's a half day of parent-teacher conferences that they would like to have on the 11th by the committee.
What's normally done there?
Normally, we have it as a holiday, and there's no student or teacher or staff attendance on Veterans Day. There are many districts who have utilized and asked for waivers so that students could be in attendance, and they've utilized that time to bring in veteran groups to present that interest on what they're celebrating. That's been done across the state. This is a very unique that I've not seen anyone do.
Okay.
In regard to the park test potential conflict with spring vacation, is the park test schedule, is there any flexibility offered in what that schedule is rather than try to change the vacation schedule? Is there a possibility for park testing?
I agree. It's about a month-long window, isn't it?
We don't know what that will look like for next year.
Right, we're still, we have some preliminary things. The state has not nailed down a final yet.
Okay, I'm not surprised.
With park testing, it's subject to change.
Jerry, did you have a question?
Yeah, it may have been partly answered, but if you go Veterans Day attendance, then do we drop another day? And as far as the GSA and the state budget, they're not going to let us add another day to the school year, are they?
No, that wouldn't be, that would be one of those required days.
Yeah.
I don't know, this doesn't look familiar to me in April where we have parent-teacher conferences back-to-back with spring break.
That is unique as well.
Okay, I just kind of see that as risky, that parent-teacher conferences would be less attended. If we're having that back-to-back, I kind of like to see that change.
I agree with Mary on that.
Part of the reason why the break is so late is that's that late that Easter comes
Right.
this year.
I'm not in favor of the Veterans Day.
What do you mean?
Well, so basically if that counts as a day of school, then the kids miss out on the day of school, right?
No, it would count like any parent-teacher day, parent-teacher conference day. It wouldn't change different. It wouldn't impact it any way different than this year's calendar.
So it's not adding or taking away a regular day of school.
No.
So what I'm hearing is Mary said, the parent-teacher or the teacher conferences prior to spring break. Are we all in favor of saying we don't like the idea of having that right before spring break? Okay, so there's that. Veterans Day, where are we at with having these students in school or not? Because that was another question you had, right?
It said ours actually, the students wouldn't be, but the teachers would be.
What's the upside to us? What do we gain from, did I miss something or?
The only thing that we gain is instead of using it on a different day.
So it would shorten the year by a day, right?
Yes.
Because of the,
I mean, so like if you run into snow days or something, I mean, if there was some issue about the length of the year being extended, then this would potentially help with that. Would that be an idea?
Really, on snow days, we build in 5 emergency days at the end of the year to cover snow days. Once you go past 5 days, they usually declare them acts of God and we don't make them.
but what it would do, Jim, right, if we say we're gonna end on June 2nd and not go to school on Veterans Day, we could change that to June 1st if we use Veterans Day.
If you use Veterans Day as, no, I think it would end up, if you, you're asking me an intricate question.
It's pushing it forward,
You're
so
pushing forward.
as it's written right now, it's Veterans Day, it's written into this calendar now as a student, it's not student attend, but we're counting it
Counting
as
and
such.
they-
And so we would essentially be going to school until June 5th, if you choose not to do what's being proposed. We have to get that other day in.
Right.
Okay.
I think we have a lot of veterans on our staff, and I just don't know if that is appropriate to ask them to work on that day. I don't know if there's a way to gather that information, but I just
Good
feel
point.
like.
For veterans, I think the presence of a holiday is sacred. And to have school open to any degree puts the school in conflict with the sacredness of that particular event. And I'd soon not do that.
Anybody said anything?
I agree with that.
Okay, all right, so I guess is that we would prefer
Not to do that.
to not open the schools on Veterans Day. Did I? And I
And
think
then,
he's concerned about
I
the,
still think we have, gonna sound like some overly OCD mom, but I think the spring, teachers conferences can be very helpful. I know at the high school they're not greatly attended, Mrs. Roper might be able to comment more on that, but I think the more, if you're a parent, the more contact you can have with the teacher, the better off things are
We just have a choice.
have
Yeah.
a choice.
You gotta have a choice.
Very true.
And just to what you alluded to, Jim, that it didn't seem like there was a consensus among all level teachers.
It was just part of the discussion.
Yeah.
It's not something that's proposed here at all.
Okay,
It was just one of those things they asked, so is it required and that type of question.
okay.
So I think we would like to see the teacher conferences on fall and spring. Did we get to every?
I think so.
All right.
If you think of something that you'd like to have input in after the meeting, feel free to shoot me.
One other question, starting the school year in the middle of the week, is that something that the staff really likes to have those 3 days to get in to the 3 days and then have the weekend? I mean, is that working well?
That was what their interest was, is easing into the school. year.
Okay, okay. They all got it, they're smiling, so yeah.
And they come on Monday and Tuesday anyway.
Right.
With the students.
Okay.
Easy, yeah.
Anything else? All right.
Then you're gonna come back to me.
Yep, now I'm on the insurance renewal report. Jim Borman, informational item.
To begin with, just, I have a guest with us who will help explain some of the renewal as well. I did put in front of you, in the packet, I put a list of options that our broker put together for us as some ways that we could pair some of the costs. I put 3 scenarios in front of you that focus on different parts of that. There are actually 5 scenarios possible. One is to do nothing, one is to do one of those 3, and that one is a combination that you all come up with. So with that, I'd like to introduce Renee Cormel from Mesero to kind of talk to you a few minutes about the process of that she went through.
Good evening, board. Is it okay if I sit? I'm going to be going through some information, so I just want to be able to reference some numbers for you and without a podium. think it
That's
would be
fine.
easier. Okay,
And
great.
Renee, if any of them are real excited, I did keep these two extra if somebody wants to read this much material.
So just to give everyone in the room an idea, this is the amount of information that the insurance committee and administration, and this year we had 2 board members participate in reviewing to discuss the health insurance renewal. We have 8 programs in place in the district. Really, the main focus is on the medical program and the dental program. The other 6 programs are in rate guarantees, which means there is no premium change to the programs. It's a 0% increase. Those 0% increases were due to negotiations we've had in prior years and an agreement to stay in a rate guarantee. So in anticipation of the renewal that comes each year for January 1st, Mesero Financial, the brokerage house that I work with, we go out to the marketplace to look at the other insurance carriers and to arm the district with quotations from the other insurance carriers so that they can see what is available in the marketplace. And then it also gives us the opportunity to go back to the incumbent carriers and share those marketing results so that we can negotiate down your renewal increase. For the health insurance program, we only have 4 markets in the state to approach. We're dealing with Aetna, Cigna, Humana, and United Healthcare. Currently, your program is with Blue Cross Blue Shield. We had 2 of the carriers quote. One quoted at a 3% increase from your current program with many plan design changes, and the other quoted at a 25% increase from your current program costs with many plan design changes. So the recommendation off the bat is for you to renew with Blue Cross Blue Shield. It has the largest network, it has the most comprehensive plan design, and it has the lowest rates. We were looking at an 8.6% increase to renew the same program. Blue Cross put into play a couple of mandatory changes on your prescription drug for your members, so it's not a choice of the district, but some extra requirements that are going in place to essentially curb the cost of prescription drugs. Prescription drugs are going up in trend by 16%, which means if the same drugs are utilized, no changes from your members, we're going to see an increase in cost of 16%. That's the inflation. And it's caused by new specialty drugs coming on the market that are extraordinarily expensive. Companies, manufacturers buying patents and increasing the cost of drugs. Manufacturers stopping to make generic drugs, so now the supply of generic goes up and there's a higher cost to it. So we're seeing things that, as you're aware, and one of your employees pointed out, it's a national healthcare crisis. So we are all in this together. The claims have increased by your members by 6.5%. So we look at the claims that were incurred by your plan. Blue Cross Blue Shield looks exactly at those claims to develop your renewal. They do not look at their clients. You're large enough where you're called credible, and it means they look at what happens with your exact account. You're large enough to take on your own risk, and they project your claims going forward. Trend increase for medical claims is 6%. Blue Cross Blue Shield issued an 8.6% renewal increase. We negotiated it to a 4.9% increase with no changes. So that is our starting point, the 4.9% change in rates. And again, some mandatory changes on prescription drug that will affect your members. I won't get into them in detail. It could take me 20 minutes to explain them. And a cap over your prescription drug utilization is increasing. So to explain your health plan very quickly, members can go in network or out of network. It's a PPO plan. Providers have contracted to be in network and charge lesser amounts, or they can see people outside of the network. The majority of your employees reside in what we call your low option plan. It is a PPO plan. It has a $500 deductible calendar year for each member. When you cover dependents on your plan, it's a 2 times maximum, which means for a family, you will pay a maximum of $1,000 deductible in a calendar year. If you happen to go out of network, all of those limits are separate and they double. The network that you rent from Blue Cross gives almost everyone an in-network opportunity. So that's very important to note. So your members have their deductible to satisfy first. That is what they pay first before Blue Cross Blue Shield, your plan, starts paying towards their claim. Deductible, again, $500. After that, Blue Cross Blue Shield is paying 80% of the claims when it's in network. Your members pay 20%, but they don't pay it indefinitely. They pay it until they hit an out-of-pocket maximum of $1,000. Per Affordable Care Act, since 2010, we've had a whole spreadsheet of plan design enhancements that your district had to enhance your plan to protect members. One of the enhancements is feeding that out-of-pocket maximum is not just done in the 20% share. Your co-pays now count towards it. That happened 2 years ago for your plan.
So you have an office visit copayment of $30 when you see a primary care physician, $50 when you see a specialist. And we know that there was a $150 emergency room copay introduced last year. These co-payments also feed that out-of-pocket maximum. So what that means is Blue Cross Blue Shield is keeping track of all of these dollars that your members spend. When they get to that $1,500, which is their deductible and out-of-pocket added together, they no longer pay for the remainder of the year. The great enhancement to that is they now have a cap on their co-pays. And whoever they meet that out-of-pocket maximum, they stop paying them. Prescription drug has to also have a ceiling over it. So there was a $500 ceiling put over it for individuals when in network and a $1,000 ceiling over it for families. So in the past, when your members paid for prescription drugs, they paid them indefinitely. And when they go for retail pharmacy, the plan covers 80% of the drug. They pay a minimum of $20, a maximum of $100, and they would pay that indefinitely. Last year, there was a ceiling put over that so that your members would know their total out-of-pocket potential, and it was $500 again for an individual and $1,000 for a family. Blue Cross Blue Shield is raising that ceiling to $1,000 and $2,000 because they're trying to keep it a cost neutral. We've had members in your plan hit that ceiling. So again, not a decision of the district, but a decision by Blue Cross Blue Shield to help offset the increase that we're seeing. So last year when we met, there was a change with the emergency room, and then we were also tasked as a committee to be meeting proactively over the course of the year to look at plan design changes so that everyone was armed with information, because when we sit down with a phone book of information, there's a lot to take in, and then to take into account all the alternatives at one time. So we met in January, we met in March, and we met in May to talk about different cost containment strategies. And in all honesty, I'm a broker, I've been doing this for 20 years. There is no magic to this. If there was, I'd be president of the United States. I would tell you how to solve this. Our state exchanges are increasing by 30 to 40% in rates, so they don't know how to control it either. But what we're looking at doing is the only way to contain cost is a cost shift. So the first option that we looked at, which is something that many employers are looking at doing, they're looking at their spousal policy. Do we include spouses on our plan? If we do, and they have access to other insurance through an employer, do they need to enroll there first so that the claims go there first and come to this plan secondary? Do we ask them to pay a surcharge? Do we eliminate them from the plan? You'll be seeing a lot of this. And I think this is a very high level, would take a lot longer to implement, but something that all districts and employers have to be looking at. The next that we looked at is plan design alternatives. So plan design alternatives have been historically presented to your district. And again, no magic. We're saying if they're charging billed premium each month for a certain level of benefit, if you lower that level of benefit and your members pay more at point of service, the plan has to collect less in claim dollars. So the rates go down. So we have looked at a menu historically, and we bring it each year, changing that deductible, that $500 deductible, increasing it in $100 increments, changing the out-of-pocket, increasing that in different breakpoints, changing your office visit copayment. We looked at emergency room last year, changing prescription drug. And when you make these changes, the underwriter at Blue Cross is giving you a decrement that says if you make this change, it should lower your overall cost by X amount. So you can see the amount that it will impact your plan. So I believe that administration gave you a look at this menu and then put together a couple scenarios. The last way to control cost on your program or to cost shift is to look at what the members contribute. So we've done a lot of analysis over each of your union contracts to say, if your current contributions are X, if we raise it incrementally by 2%, what does that do to the district bottom line? What does it do to the members' bottom line per paycheck monthly basis? But again, I understand that that's protected in union contracts, so I think it's information to arm both your employees and your administration with, so you can see what the numbers look like, and everyone can make a decision, how do we want to contribute together for this program? But I think at this year's renewal, the options that we're looking at are the plan alternatives, because those are ones we can execute in time for January 1st. So when we had our insurance meeting last week, we went through all of this information and then had the conversation that we wanted to meet with the board on an informational basis, share with you the renewal increase, and then get directive of what you think of that renewal increase and if there's action that you want taken to mitigate it this year. Again, it is a 4.9% change. As pointed out, there was an emergency room change last year. In regard to our dental program, we moved from Delta Dental to MetLife last year.
to produce a savings. So that change was executed. This year, in terms of dental market, your renewal was going to be a 17% increase. We had it capped at a 6%. Due to some implementation errors that they made when we first rolled it out and some issues that our members had. It's great that we have that in place because we were looking at a 17% increase. When we went out to the market, no one could beat the renewal offer. Our lowest offer from the market was a 19.9% increase. So the recommendation on MetLife is to stay with them. There are not many ways to tweak your dental. It's a pretty straightforward minimal plan. So I really wanted to be here tonight to answer questions. I want to point out that the government has put in place maximum out-of-pocket liability for members now for an insurance plan that can be sold. You're going to hear a lot about bronze plans. The plan has to have a 60% value. What that means is that when a member uses the plan, in the course of a year, they cannot spend more than $6,350 out of their pocket in plan cost. These plans were not in existence. Government created them as the bare bones, and the insurance carriers all had to create them then. So now what you see out in the marketplace in the state exchange are plans that have a $6,000 deductible. And then after that, the members share in co-insurance until they spend another $350. There are no office visits, emergency room, prescription drug co-payments. Those are considered bells and whistles. They protect you from that deductible. On these state exchange plans, you pay that $6,000 deductible in every instance. So the direction that we see healthcare going is catastrophic coverage. Instead of a member having comprehensive feeling when they're using the plan, they'll be responsible for the first $6,000 in out-of-pocket costs. Once they satisfy that, the plan will cover them at 100%. So it's essentially meant for catastrophic loss. The big question that raises is if someone enrolls in that and has to use the plan, how do they afford it? So the position that you're in is a $500 deductible plus your $1,000 out of pocket. That's $1,500. You also have to add the prescription drug out of pocket maximum to it. So you are at a total of $2,500 for your program. And you can see from the menu what the incremental changes are. But again, I'd like to stress it is a cost shift. It is a way of reducing those premiums and then members paying at point of service. And if you look closely at the menu, the plan design changes are not all worth the same. The ones that the underwriter feels they will reap from your plan, like a deductible change, a prescription drug, are worth more because they know the members will pay more at point of service.
Andrea, could you in dollars tell the board how much money this increase equals?
Right, so in total with all the changes from the information that we received from Renee was 300 and rounding to numbers here, $392,000 increase to the district. Now, as far as how much the district pays on that is 85% of that. So essentially, we would see $333,000 increase from the district.
And that's health and dental?
That's, yes.
Okay.
That's keeping everything the same.
With the exception of those mandatory prescription drug changes that you would not elect but would go into place, yes.
So just a little bit more kind of history of what's happened. Last week, the insurance committee met, last Tuesday, and they went over this presentation and listened, and Mary and Vicki are reps on that committee. And they would like to know, I guess the discussion was, maybe Vicki, you should.
Well, the committee wanted to hear some discussion from the board in open session about what it is we wanted to do. The committee meets again on the 13th. And at that time, I don't know if they were thinking they were going to come up with recommendations. Where are we? Did we do it? Yeah. And then come back to the board for action on the 20th. Unless I total it. Is that right? I think we need to get back. The board needs to get back and talk with the committee about how they feel like it's going to go. And I think some of those committee members were also going to be talking to their bargaining unit members to see what they were going to be comfortable with.
What we need from you tonight is, are you okay with this increase? Or do you want us to examine things further to mitigate this dollar increase to the school district? Which means then our meeting next week with the insurance committee, we would utilize that time to go through all these varying options of where we could come up with cost savings.
And from that, this is what
Yes.
So what we
Jim
did
put
is
together
we
for
put
us.
together for you 3 scenarios. That if you say that you want a cost shift, we found 3 different ways that we thought could be done if that's what you desire. One is spreading out the adjustments throughout the plan. One is focusing on the mostly on the deductibles and copays. The deductibles out of pocket. And then the third one was the copays, because that would focus at the point of service. So we kind of gave 3 scenarios if that's what you desire, which could be sent to the committee.
Question for Andrew. So this 333K number, is this something that's beyond the projected deficit, or is this included in that?
That is actually included in that. When we built the budget with a 5% increase in insurance costs.
That's what you expect?
Right.
You hope so.
Well, that was one of the assumptions we
Okay,
made,
just
and
an
we got
assumption.
pretty damn close.
And so what do we do now, choose one of these options?
Well, the insurance committee wants to know what the board would support. You know, what recommendation ours is to keep it where
Based on
the
these 3
district
years.
would, no.
So,
Sorry.
we want to have a discussion about, number one, do we just, does the school district absorb all those additional costs due to the increase? Do we go back to the insurance committee and say, we want to do some cost sharing, where you absorb some of that and we absorb some of that through choosing one or a combination of these? Or is there a third option? Basically,
That's all we're saying at this
right,
point.
and then this will go back to the insurance committee, and, I mean, we could choose one, or we can send this back to the insurance committee and have them look through it. And
Because they're gonna go back to their numbers and say,
All 4 bargaining unit groups are represented on the insurance committee. So they can get back with their memberships and talk to them. I think some of them, it sounded like we're already working on that. So,
My recommendation is that you do send it back to the committee to decide. What they need to know is whether you want them to make a cost shift and how large a cost shift you want them to make, if you want that.
Howard?
I've already signed off on a budget, and the budget already includes, as Andrea says, these preparation for the increases in insurance costs. And since I've already signed off on it, I guess I anticipated that we're going to pay it and continue to pay it in full. So it seems like a moot point to me to suggest that we stay where we are. It would be nice to achieve some cost savings, but not at the cost of having our staff being hit up for this as additional out of pocket, which is where it's all going to come to. We chose to do it. We signed off on it already. We should probably stick with what we agreed to.
I sort of see what you're saying, Howard, but at the same time, the deficits are projected deficits, and they change. Each year they change. I mean, you see something at the beginning of the year that says it's 1.4 million or something, and at the end of the year, maybe it's down to 700,000 because some cost savings were found somewhere. So as much as I don't want to see anyone, have to do without something or have to pay more or whatever, anytime we're running a deficit, you have to look, I think, at all possible places to save money until we can get back onto, a positive budget situation. So I think you send it back to the committee with the hope that there might be something, that could be gained. I mean, ultimately, if we're not fiscally responsible, if we run deficits every year, I guarantee you our fund balance will go to 0 and we will have real problems. If everybody doesn't have some skin in the game, if everybody isn't willing to participate and do what we can whatever part we have in District 428, taxpayer, administrator, teacher, whatever, students even, you know, we won't be providing education at some point. We'll lose something very, very serious. Not that this isn't serious. But I think you just have to keep the mindset that says if there's a chance that we can reduce that deficit, we have to look at all possible options.
Well, if we're going to do that, if we're going to look at these options, we probably should try to scale them. Looking at the items that were in the board docs, looking for possibly the minimum available increase. So we're not looking at something where we're talking about quadrupling out-of-pocket expenses, but where the out-of-pocket expenses, if they go anywhere, go up by 5-10% or something like that, so that we introducing this into people's lives gradually and not impoverishing our.
Well, last year, the board, if I can, last year, the intent of the board was to, what you just said, incrementally increase so that nobody was getting slammed, which was why I think the previous and Richardson incorporated was $0 and it went to $150. So that some of that sharing process would start. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, it does.
And that's why I like the idea of it going back to the insurance committee. I mean, there's nothing in this proposal about quadrupling out-of-pocket costs. There's nothing, I think these are fairly conservative. But to have input from the insurance committee, which includes all 4 unions, I think that's the democratic way to come to a decision, is having their input.
I agree. Rick, do you have any?
No, I'd like to see it go back.
Okay. So are we okay with saying these are ideas that we could support as a board, but we'd like the committee's input? From what I understand, they wanted to know what we would support as a board.
Right, so either they have to pick one of the 3 or we have to come up with a dollar amount.
Correct. Of what we want and see. Yeah. And I guess I'm not sure I want to put a dollar amount on it. Would that be okay with the committee? I'd rather hear what they would like. Or do we want a dollar amount?
If we mirrored a dollar amount that was in one of those recommendations, but with different plan design alternatives, would that be agreeable?
Is that agreeable? Okay.
I guess, and I think I heard some of this, very extensive presentation, thank you, for not being on the committee, and all that coming at me the first time, it's like, wow. But something I wonder about, Jim, maybe you can speak to this. Is this typical what do districts of our size normally do under these kinds of conditions? And also in the bigger picture sense, you know, if our staff, our administrators, all our employees, you know, take a hit in some way or another, how does that compare to the workplace at large?
And Renee did provided in the packet a lot of information, including those things. They
Okay.
compared us to other public sector as well as to private, overall insurance market. And we are competitive to better than competitive across the board. The one thing that should also be said that there is a method that an employee can reduce some of their out-of-pocket expenses, which we only have 82 employees who take advantage of the flexible spending account. It's a way to have money taken out of your check pre-tax, which in essence basically discounts your out-of-pocket by 30%. So give or take a little, depending where you're at. But so there are some methods that employees could utilize that aren't being utilized at this point.
And these are the kind of savings that I'm thinking about, that perhaps if it goes back to the committee, you know, if they can work a little harder on it, then maybe something can be encouraged. And Howard, to your point, when we do the budget, you know, when Andrea and everyone works on the budget, often it's without the full knowledge of what comes later. You know, and we have to sign off on that because of the state timing of everything, and don't always have every little bit of information that we'll get like we are now. You know, and perhaps more information once the committee gets going again.
Well, I think there's a timing problem here because Blue Cross doesn't put out a renewal until 3 months before the renewal date,
Yeah.
and open enrollment starts in December. And we need to give people time to work on this in the interim so that it gets done in a timely manner so that Blue Cross isn't under the gun and so our HR department is not under the gun. It's a timing issue. We don't know. to Carrie's point, they don't know what the renewal is until September 1st, right? Or maybe later.
And that's
So
4
by
months.
then, Andrea's already done the budget and, you know.
So Vicki, maybe have we given you enough information to go back to the insurance committee?
Yeah, I think that that'll have to be done sooner. I mean, that meeting was set up tentatively, I believe, wasn't it?
I think it's set in cement.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So we'll be ready for the 20th meeting for you to take action.
Right. I'd rather, if we can communicate some of this in advance of next Tuesday and maybe get this to them so they can, you know, review it if there's a way we can legally do that.
We certainly can.
Okay, thank you.
So, I just have a question. So this is the information that the committee's been working on?
No. This is a recommendation that, Renee, you drafted this up or no?
So what I did is I took what the committee listed and I made some scenarios. And all I did is put together scenarios. There's nothing, that's not a recommendation, it's scenarios. So I said there were 5 choices. Do nothing, one of those 3, or something besides.
So then in effect, the committee would be picking from one of these?
Or making a combination of menu options.
I could just start to bring things together.
So I mean, it's clear already, though, that, like, the total amount
Which is in there.
is not.
It's in there?
Yeah, we've got that.
There's gonna have to be some.
Like, but we're just by these savings, we're making costs. Okay.
Okay. Next, we have the non-business consent agenda. That the Board of Education approve non-business consent agenda items A through F. Have a motion?
Second.
Roll call, please, or discussion? Roll call?
Carrie Millette,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Rick Smith,
Yes.
Corey Solomon,
Yes.
Vicki Herman Favor,
Yes.
Mary Hess.
Yes.
Next, we have new business administration, proposed change in the recruiting and hiring process. Jim Mormon, and this is an information item.
The gym check.
Yeah.
In your board packet, you do have the proposal that, or it's actually, it's a process change. It's not a policy, it's simply a process change. And so that is before you to see what we had in mind, as well as a flow chart of that process. And so what I've given to you, it's a way to handle recruitment and hiring in a different manner. And so it is before you to look at. I think I've had some input from some of you, and I've tried to make those adaptations, and would certainly welcome any others. This proposal, as it is written, does require additional assistance to implement it. And so that is a part of that proposal as well. I cannot implement the proposal without the process, without the staffing to do it.
Questions for Jim?
Jim, the one part of this, as I remember, it was number 10E or something, section 4E, I think it was, had something initially about having a flag in place for job gaps and long periods of unemployment. In the final version of that you're dealing with, has that indeed been removed?
Yes, sir.
I saw a version, but I didn't know that was the final one.
The final one just more directly refers to E 4E, which is no glaring information found. And so I that
You have made changes to
yes,
that, remove those two.
it would indeed, I did, and and if the final that will come to you will be very clearly, I'll get out to you plenty of time to review.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Jim. Oh, do we have a consensus to bring it back for action?
Yes.
Okay. Next, we have recommended revisions to Board of Education policies. And this is a second reading, and this is an action item. That the Board of Education hold a second reading and approve recommended revisions from the Illinois Association of School Boards to Board of Education policies as attached.
Can I make a motion to amend something in here? In section 7.325, which is the student section, they gave us an option regarding student fundraising activities, and the original suggestion is to write in there that student safety is paramount. There were two other options. One says that door-to-door sales are prohibited, and one says that door-to-door solicitations are discouraged, and I would like to move that we flip out the student safety must be paramount to door-to-door solicitations are discouraged.
Second. Okay. Discussion on that?
I think it's moving in the right direction, thank you.
Then roll call, please.
Howard Solomon,
Yes.
Vicky Erdman-Faber,
Yes?
Mary Hess,
Yes.
Carrie Lot,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Kurt Smith.
Yes.
And do I have a thing to adjourn the meeting? All in favor?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.